Hey, in this video, I'm going to be focused on what I think Diamond and Ascendant players can learn in terms of game sense and gameplay from the FUT versus Leviatan matches. I'm going to focus you all on a concept today related to strong sides of a map versus weak sides of a map, and how you can make sure you analyze each round and map before playing to optimize how you support your team. So let's dive in. All right, so no clips for you Diamond and Ascendant players today. I'm just going to go over a concept. I have this really crappy image of a map that was being played by FUT and Leviatan. This was on Lotus, and so there's 3 sites, and I want you to really focus in on who's playing on one site, on what site rather. So you have Cypher on C, you have Viper on B, you have Omen kind of on A over by Stairs, ready to kind of play B or A. And then you have Breach and Jet over on A specifically. What I want to talk about is this concept of strong side versus weak side. There's really kind of 2 prevailing, I guess, schools of thought, so to speak, as it relates to what makes a site a strong site on a map. One of them is just the map itself, so the lanes that you can use to enter that site as an attacker, for example. And the other is the agent that is playing on top of that already either strong or weak site. So let me kind of break this down in 2 phases, right? So phase 1 is just what are these sites and which one of these is strong or weak. We're on Lotus, so there's 3 sites. So already all of these are weaker than they normally would be, because as an attacker, you have 3 potential places to hit. And so the defenders are spread a little bit more thin across all 3 of these sites. Then when you factor in the agents on top of that, it makes it much more difficult as defenders to hold this. But let's just ignore that for a second and talk about the map as a whole. What you're going to look at here is on C. This is considered the strongest site of the map. I'm not talking about how strong or weak this site is in relation to the current meta. There might be certain pieces of utility and certain agents that can get you onto C easier than B or A, right? That's a very likely scenario in a lot of these pro player metas, especially as it relates to Diamond and Ascendant lobbies. Like, it's much more difficult to coordinate a push, and so some of these might be stronger than others, right? But generally speaking, without any agent abilities and without any utility being used, C is the strongest site on Lotus. There's only one entry point. So they have to funnel all in through one space and clear a 50-50 on this side or this side. They have to clear this back box here that they can peek out of. So really there's 3 potential places that they can die from instantly. That's not accounting for someone peeking up from here. So 4, not accounting for somebody peeking up from here. That's 5. Somebody peeking up from here. That's 6. That's all 6 total spots that they could die from instantly as they enter this site, right? So C is very clearly a strong site for defenders without any utility. Let's talk about B. B has 1 potential entry point, at least off the rip. And I'm going to explain why that's important in a second. But let's say right now, 1 potential entry point, they have to clear this 50-50. So that's 1, 2. They have to clear this peak here. They have to clear this peak here. So at most, they have 4 potential places to look when they enter this site, right? This peeking this right side kind of clears all of this as well, all of breakable. So they really only have 4 spots that they have to look at once they enter this site. Now, A side. You come in here, you have 1 potential direction to look at, you have 2 potential directions to look at, and then you have 3 potential directions to look at. What I'm trying to get at here is that A is the easiest site to hit, and that's not even accounting for the fact that you also have tree. So you have 2 lanes now to get onto A versus B and C. Now I do want to add the caveat that I'm sure that all of you are looking at right now, and that's breakable. If you're pushing A and you get control of this space and you've opened up breakable door, you now have 2 potential lanes to come in as an attacker. And this becomes much easier now, because when you come out of here, you only have to look here and you only have to look here. Because if a person on your team has taken control of this, they can clear all of this lane for you. And so all you have to do coming out of B main is here and here, same with this. So there's really only 2. So I illustrate all of that to show you that as a map, A is going to be your easiest attacking option, and C is going to be your most difficult attacking option, with B kind of playing in between C and A, right? Like there's this hybrid of like, yeah, it could be a really, really good place to attack, but it could also be a really crappy place to attack depending on what you control on the map. Now, let's go ahead and discuss what that means in relation to a composition. So within this concept of a composition, right, you've got, we just went over the idea that C is the strongest, A is the weakest, B has this kind of like in between. And you see that reflected in the way that they're playing these as well, right? You see it reflected with putting your strongest hold on C to make sure that this stays the strong side. You see that reflected in putting your second, essentially, sentinel. I know that she's a controller, but she does get played a lot like a sentinel. Putting her on B to make sure that you can keep control of B main with this wall and focus your energy here on breakable, right? So that's one way that they're playing it here, to make sure that B stays as strong as it should be, right? Like I mentioned earlier, if you don't control this, then this becomes pretty difficult to push because you're all funneling out of one direction and you have 4 potential areas to look. So what they're doing here is essentially stopping them from pushing this with this wall and the molly, and allowing this Viper to control and focus her energy on this section specifically, right? So that's another thing that they're doing here with their comp. And then what you're noticing here on A is that they have Omen kind of focused on main here, and then they have Jet and Breach kind of playing however it is that they think they need to play. I don't want to get into the world of economy because that also wildly swings the way that you might play something like this. If if you've got no money and you're all broke, then yeah, maybe you kind of stack more heavily towards A because it is an easier site to take. And so you want them to push you so that you maybe get like some pretty quick kills by stacking with 5, right? Or maybe the opposite. Maybe you want to hold C because ultimately it's the easiest thing to hold, and so you want them to push you so that you can get easier kills here on like an econ round or something. But at the moment, they're keeping C as strong as it should be. They're keeping B with the focus on breakable because they know that if that breaks, this falls apart. And then they're stacking A side essentially with 3 people to ensure that they can keep the weak side of the map stronger with the amount of agents that they're playing on that side. So what does this all mean for you in Diamond and Ascendant lobbies? Obviously, this is a very coordinated team. They're professionals, so of course they're going to have these strategies on how it is that they play this map. But I want you to try to pinpoint what you would do in situations like this and how you would react based off the agent that you're playing and the agents that your team is playing. So let's say that these are all the agents that are on your team in a Diamond or an Ascendant lobby. Let's assume, I just want to kind of throw a scenario out at you. Let's assume that you're this Omen, right? And you are trying to figure out in this round, and this is like full buy for both teams. You're both full bot, you both have a good econ. You're trying to figure out where you're going to play. You're trying to see, okay, should I play on C? Well, let's think about that for a second, right? If we're thinking about strong side to weak side, usually, yeah, Omen would be good on a strong side because it keeps it strong, right? You have a smoke and you can kind of keep them at bay, so to speak. You can blind, you can smoke, you can kind of pause that push for a little bit. However, you already have your Cypher here. So let's say you're in your little Diamond Ascendant lobby. You come over here and you see Cypher. Okay, maybe I shouldn't play here. This is already a strong site. We have a strong agent on the strong site. What am I going to do here to help this situation? Maybe smoke here? Okay, great. But there's already trips and there's already probably some sort of cages here. So realistically, I'm not going to do anything here. Okay, let's think about B. How can I help on B? Well, this is kind of a strong site. It may not be a strong site, like I mentioned, if they get control of breakable room here. So maybe I want to help play on top B heaven, smoke here. Maybe I can blind through to make sure that it kind of keeps them at bay for a little bit. Maybe I can alternate my smokes with B main here. However, I would make the argument that yes, although you can do all of that, you're giving the enemy a gap on the A side. So what does that mean? Again, A side is your weak side of the map. Not only is it your weak side, but if this is your Diamond and Ascendant lobby and you're the Omen here, and you see your Jet and you see your Breach here, they're at risk right now of potentially getting screwed, right? Because if they have 2 lanes to push, they can't both focus on both of those lanes. They're either going to get split or they're going to both focus on one lane, creating a gap. So let's play that out, right? Let's say this Jet and this Breach on your team are the only ones on A and you're over here on B, right? Let's just assume that's the situation. You decided to help out on B. In this situation, these two, if they focus here, well, now this gap opens up. If they split and there's 2 people coming out of tree, that's a disadvantaged fight. Same thing here. If there's 2 people coming out of main, disadvantaged fight. So what you want to do is try to understand, okay, this is the weakest site on the map, and we have only 2 people holding 2 potential lanes. I need to make sure that I'm there for support because this is the weakest side of this entire map. And if this falls apart, if this area right here falls apart, now B becomes an additional weak side of the map because they've controlled this section of the map as well. And so they can freely roam between these 2 areas. They can go to B, they can come back over to A, and this entire back and forth is completely up to them on what it is that they want to do. So I'm not trying to say that this is going to work out perfectly for you in every single game, right? Diamond and Ascendant lobbies are very fickle when it comes to what enemy compositions you get, what team compositions you get on your team. But what I want you to do is focus on what you can control, right? So if you're the Omen here, you can control the fact that you can play this angle here and you can smoke this area here, which is the most pivotal smoke for you at this stage because you have your Viper. Likewise, let's say you're this Breach. If you're playing over on C, you're really not doing anything because you've already got a couple of stuns, right? Like there's so much for you to do before the round starts just to analyze where your team is playing and then make sure that you're making the proper adjustments necessary to play the site that is either the weakest on the map that needs the most amount of help or the strongest, depending on who you're playing, right? So if you're playing Cypher and you want to keep C locked down, great. Tell your team, I'm going to keep C locked down. I need you all to focus on the other areas of the map. A seems weak right now because we only have maybe 2 instead of Omen playing over here. There needs to be that level of analysis if you want to rank up beyond just an Ascendant and you want to get into that immortal status. It takes this type of very quick thinking and on your feet analysis from round to round to try to make sure that you are not just putting your team in the best position possible, but yourself too. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, think about subscribing to the channel or liking the video. Thanks for watching, and go apply what you've learned in game.